I want to talk about something right now.
And Clark, I just wanted to quickly read you a question that came in to the show that's about what you're talking about. So maybe you could answer it. It's from Bo in Kentucky. Maybe when you're talking about this, he said, I wanted to know if Clark has any recommendations about couples financial counseling.
Okay, so that's all I get is couples financial counseling as a kickoff. Okay. So I'm glad that you're asking that question because this has been something that has been on my radar for a number of years, is that couples seem to be comfortable communicating about so many things, even really intimate things, but cannot seem to get across the threshold of talking about money. Part of it is the ages that people are coupling are generally significantly later than they used to be. People used to pick out a partner very, very young. And today, more often, late 20s into the 30s is where people may couple up. And whether that is living with somebody or being married to them, it's later. And so people have already established their own financial habits, and they have their own, maybe they have their own retirement accounts, maybe they have their own savings account, maybe they got a lot of debts. And so when couples get together, it's this very awkward dance. How do you get to talking about money? And it's not necessary to do this too early. I mean, there was a thing last year where I don't know who came up with the idea of testing how likely somebody was willing to go out with you based on your credit score. And I thought that was really interesting, that's so unromantic that people wouldn't even go out on a first date with you if they knew your credit score was terrible. Wow. But let's go the other way. You start dating someone, or you decide to establish a life together. What is fair game to be on the table? I think it's really important that couples discuss their goals. You know, what is it they hope to have happen in their lives and when they want it to have happen? And part of that is the money discussion, because it's key that as couples bring their lives together, they don't necessarily have to bring their finances together, but their attitudes about finance become really important and can become a flashpoint in a relationship or in a marriage. Because if one of you comes in and everything is about financially living for today, and Visa and MasterCard solve all, because I see it, I want it, that settles it, because I say charge it. And then someone else is like, well, you know, I really can't do that right now because I don't have the resources for it. And it doesn't mean if in a couple each have very different attitudes about money that it can't work. But it means that knowing where the other is financially and where their attitudes are very important. And over time, it will matter more. Because if there are long-time goals that you want to achieve, it is important that you be going towards the same direction. Because you don't want to be in a position where you're together for decades and one of you is like, you're all psyched towards the direction of being able to retire and travel, and the other owes money to everybody and has no money towards the future. Because then the one who has saved so much and put so much money aside for the future, real resentment builds up towards the person who hasn't saved anything and still owes everybody money. This is not a conversation. This is an ongoing conversation. And don't do it when something has gone wrong. Make a point of discussing things about money at a neutral or positive time, never when something bad has happened financially. It's because most people don't talk about it till the wallet's on fire. It's really important for a couple to have ongoing conversations about money and goals and the rest. And what are each's attitudes about borrowing money? When do you borrow money? What's a safe amount to have that you owe to various people, to various banks, for various purposes? The more you discuss, the more trust there is in a relationship. I've shared with you in the past about couples who hide accounts from each other and how corrosive that is to a relationship. And it doesn't mean that you commingle your funds, but I do believe that it's really useful for a couple to have a house account to pay rent, mortgage, ongoing bills that are joint bills, that you have an account that you each put funding into and you determine your own formula for it. If one of you makes much more money than the other, you may have it unbalanced how much each of you puts in. Whatever it is that's going to work for you comes about from the conversations you have from each other. You can't just suppose that they feel like you do and think like you do and act like you do. That's why the conversations are important. So you can have all the relationship fun together. You don't want things eating at that relationship. And I can tell you, I've learned over the years that when you have these differences about money and you don't have conversations about money, it will tear at the joy that the two of you have together. Krista?
So for Bo, what would you recommend?
Read it again, because that was so long ago.
He wanted to know about financial counseling for couples. So it could be one or two scenarios, I would say. Like either they could be in financial trouble, so maybe they need a counselor for that, or just trying to get on the same page. And I'll say from my perspective, hiring somebody who's a fee-only fiduciary planner and sitting down with my husband and I, even if you pay him for an hour, is great to help you set goals too and work together. So if you're in that kind of situation, I do think that could be helpful.
I agree completely with what you said in a situation where it's like goal setting moving forward. And I want it to be a fee-only planner, of course, and we have on Clark.com how to do that. But the other scenario is financial counseling if you're in financial trouble. And usually, and this is so open-ended that we can only suppose what we're talking about here. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling at nfcc.org has counseling available, and it forces couples to put all their chips on the table. And you have to talk about the obligations you have, the income you have, and can you just meet the daily expenses? And I don't want it to get to that point. That's why I want so much for there to be ongoing conversations. Remember, again, never out of anger, never out of a time that there's a financial fire. You want to have those conversations when neither party is going to be naturally in a defensive mode.
Yeah, I remember when we were younger, my husband and I would do Friday night finance meetings. Like just they could be very brief, but we came to a place where we needed to talk once a week about how we were doing. And so we would get pizza on Friday nights and sit. We'd have a conversation, look how we did the last week, and then so we don't have to do that anymore. But that was helpful for us.
Well, the interesting thing in your relationship with Mike is that early on he was really somebody who I worry about tomorrow, and now he's totally focused and is a phenomenal saver for the future.
Yes.
And you were always there, but he has progressed that direction over the years.
Well, I actually listened to you before I started working for you, so I owe you and your advice for getting me started.